A millionaire single father caught his daughter praying for God to bring her mother back. What he discovered changed their lives forever. An emotional story of faith and love that will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, and comment where you are watching from. The black Range Rover glided silently down Rodeo Drive in the heart of upscale neighborhoods in Los Angeles, its wheels whispering over the wet asphalt from the typical May drizzle. David Thompson adjusted the knot of his Hermes tie while watching the illuminated mansions parade by the window, each representing fortunes built over decades of relentless work. At 42, he was the owner of one of the largest financial technology companies in the country, an empire he had built brick by brick since leaving a neighborhood in Los Angeles as a teenager, determined to never know hunger or humiliation again. The driver, Mr. James, a 60-year-old man who had worked for the family for over a decade, watched through the rearview mirror as his boss massaged his temples with his fingers. "Mr. David, you arrived 2 hours early today. Did something happen at the company?" David lifted his eyes from his smartphone, where stock market numbers flickered in red and green like out-of-season Christmas lights. The meeting with the Japanese investors was cancelled. Problems with their flight. His voice carried the fatigue of someone who had only slept 3 hours in the last 48. "I thought I could take the chance to have dinner at home for once." The electronic gate of the mansion opened automatically, recognizing the vehicle's license plate. The 10,000 square feet property stretched like an oasis of tranquility amid the urban chaos of Los Angeles. Palm trees lined the circular entrance, and the garden, designed by a famous landscape architect, created a play of shadows and lights that David rarely had time to appreciate. "Mrs. Sarah left dinner ready in the greenhouse," Mr. James informed, parking near the main entrance. "And little Emily was eagerly waiting for you to help her with her homework." A barely perceptible smile touched David's lips. Emily, his 8-year-old daughter, was the only person capable of disarming his defenses with a simple hug. With curly brown hair like her mother's, large expressive eyes that seemed to hold all the wisdom of the world, she was simultaneously his greatest joy and his greatest fear, the fear of failing her, just as all the important adults in his life had failed him. The house was silent when he entered, only the soft ticking of the antique clock echoing in the main hall. The Carrara marble walls reflected the golden light from the crystal chandeliers, creating an elegant yet cold atmosphere. Paintings by Brazilian masters, Portinari, Di Cavalcanti, Volpi, adorned the walls like silent witnesses to the success he had achieved. But at that moment, all that ostentation felt empty, like a set designed for a play for which he had forgotten the script. "Mrs. Sarah," he called, heading to the kitchen, but he found only a note on the granite countertop. "Mr. David, I had to take my mother to the hospital. I will be back early tomorrow. Emily is in her room doing her homework. Dinner in the greenhouse. Call me if you need anything. Sarah." He loosened his tie and climbed the marble stairs, his steps muffled by the Persian rug running down the hallway. The house, with its 5,000 square feet spread over 2 floors, suddenly felt too big, too silent. He reached the 2nd floor, where the bedrooms were located, and noticed a sliver of light escaping from under Emily's bedroom door. He approached silently, preparing for one of their rare father-daughter interactions. Perhaps he could help her with math or listen to her talk about her day at school. Those moments were precious, even though he often felt like an actor playing a role for which he had not been adequately prepared. The door was ajar, and what he saw made him stop as if he had been punched in the stomach. Emily was kneeling in the center of the room, still wearing the navy blue uniform of St. Mary's Academy. Her little hands tightly held a silver frame, and her soft voice echoed through the room like a whispered prayer. In the picture frame, the smiling face of Sarah, his wife, seemed to watch over their daughter with that expression of infinite tenderness he could remember with astonishing clarity. "Our Lady," the girl said, rocking slightly back and forth, "I promise I will be the most obedient daughter in the whole world. I promise I will eat all my food. I will brush my teeth without anyone telling me. I will study hard and get only A's. Just please, please bring my mom back home." The words hit David like bullets, each syllable piercing the emotional armor he had so carefully built over the years. His legs weakened, and he leaned against the doorframe, struggling to maintain control. "I know she's somewhere very far away," Emily continued, a tear rolling down her rosy cheek. "But if she comes back, I promise I will never throw a tantrum at bath time again, and I will never forget to put away my toys. And I will share all my candies with her, even the chocolate that Grandpa brought from Switzerland." David's heart completely crumbled. There was his little daughter carrying a weight no child should bear, negotiating with God as if she were guilty for the abandonment they had suffered. The scene was a cruel mirror of his own childhood, when he too had pleaded for his mother to come back, promising to be a better boy, quieter, more invisible. "Daddy works a lot because he's sad," the girl whispered to the photograph. "And I know he doesn't talk about it, but sometimes I hear him crying. In the office when he thinks I'm sleeping. If Mom comes back, maybe he'll be happy again, and we can be a real family." The revelation that his pain had not gone unnoticed by his daughter hit him like a lightning bolt. How many nights had he thought he was hiding his suffering behind the closed door of the office, shedding silent tears over contracts and spreadsheets? How many times had Emily heard his muffled sobs and felt responsible for comforting him? "I accept that she left without saying goodbye," the child continued, her voice breaking, "because maybe she was afraid of making me even sadder. But now I've grown up, Our Lady. Now I can write in cursive, and I know how to divide. I can take care of her if she's sick or if she's lost somewhere." David felt his own tears begin to flow, hot and salty, carrying years of repressed pain. His daughter's innocence, her ability to forgive the unforgivable, her willingness to take on responsibilities that were not hers. This all reminded him of why he had fought so hard to build his financial empire. It wasn't for the money itself, but for the illusion that he could protect those he loved through control and material security. The girl gently kissed the glass of the frame, leaving a small, damp mark on her mother's photographed face. "Good night, Mom. I love you to the moon and back, like you always said. Tomorrow I will pray again, okay?" She carefully placed the portrait on the nightstand, next to a glass of water and a children's book that clearly hadn't been read in weeks. Then she got up and walked to the bed, where a pink, unicorn-patterned pajama awaited her. David silently retreated down the hallway, his inner world crumbling and rebuilding with each step. He descended the stairs like a man in a trance, headed to the living room bar, and poured himself a generous glass of 25-year-old Scotch whiskey. The amber liquid burned his throat, but it couldn't warm the chill that had settled in his chest. He sat in the leather armchair where he used to review financial reports, but this time there were no documents on the coffee table. Just the silence of the opulent house and the crushing weight of the revelation that he had failed as a father in the same devastating way his own parents had failed him. That night, David Thompson, the man who controlled millions of dollars and influenced decisions affecting thousands of people, discovered that he had completely lost control over the only thing that truly mattered, his daughter's happiness. And for the first time in 20 years, he had no idea how to fix what was broken. The first ray of sunlight seeped through the silk curtains of the office, finding David still in the same armchair where he had spent the night awake. The half-empty bottle of whiskey reflected the golden morning light, and the papers scattered across the table revealed not financial reports, but torn, pages from a notepad where he had tried, unsuccessfully, to write a letter to Emily explaining her mother's absence. Each attempt ended crumpled on the floor. "Dear daughter, your mother—" How to explain the inexplicable? Emily, sometimes people— How to justify the unjustifiable? The words refused to cooperate, leaving him frustrated and increasingly aware of his emotional inadequacy. The sound of little footsteps descending the stairs brought him back to reality. Emily appeared in the office doorway, still in her pajamas, her hair tousled from sleep and a look of concern on her angelic face. "Daddy, did you sleep here again?" she asked, approaching cautiously as someone who had already learned to read adult moods. David quickly hid the written sheets and forced a smile. "Good morning, Princess. Daddy was just finishing up some work." The lie came out automatically, a conditioned reflex from years of protecting her from his own vulnerabilities. Emily climbed onto the arm of the chair with the familiarity of someone who had done it 1,000 times before, snuggling against her father's shoulder. The soft scent of chamomile children's shampoo mixed with talcum powder enveloped her like a hug, and David felt his heart constrict. "Mrs. Sarah hasn't arrived yet," the girl commented, distractedly playing with the button of her father's wrinkled dress shirt. "I managed to get dressed by myself and brush my teeth. I just couldn't do the hairstyle she always does." Her curly hair was unruly, with some curls bouncing in impossible directions. David hesitantly reached out and tried to smooth her hair, but it immediately returned to its original position, making Emily laugh. "Daddy, you don't know how to style a girl's hair," she said, amused. "Mommy always did 2 pretty braids with those blue ribbons that matched the uniform." David's heart constricted again. Sarah had disappeared when Emily was only 3 years old, but his daughter's memory of her mother's care remained vividly alive. Mrs. Sarah arrived 2 hours later, her face tired and her eyes red. She was a 55-year-old woman, with grey hair always neatly tied in a bun, who had taken on the care of the house and Emily with almost maternal dedication. "Dr. David, I'm so sorry for the delay," she said, placing her bag on the kitchen counter. "My mother had a blood pressure crisis during the night. We had to stay in the emergency room until now." "How is she?" David asked, preparing coffee in the Italian machine he rarely used. Over the last 5 years, Sarah had become much more than a housekeeper. She was the emotional stability his home desperately needed. "Stable, thank God, but the doctor said she needs more care. She's becoming more fragile." Sarah watched Emily finish her breakfast alone, cutting the little bread with the expertise of someone who had already taken on responsibilities beyond her age. Did the girl manage to turn by herself this morning? "She was able to change and brush her teeth," confirmed David, feeling a strange mix of pride and sadness for his daughter's early independence. Later, after Emily left for school in the car with a driver, David found himself alone in the office, unable to concentrate on the reports piling up on the desk. The scene from the previous night replayed in his mind like a film on loop. His daughter kneeling, begging for her mother's return, taking on guilt that wasn't hers. At 10 in the morning, he made a decision that would change everything. "Sandra," he said into the intercom, "cancel all meetings for today. I need to resolve an urgent personal matter." His assistant, used to her boss's relentless routine, hesitated. "Doctor, you have the presentation for the board at 2 o'clock. Reschedule it for tomorrow. And find me the contacts for the best domestic staffing agencies in the city. I need someone special." An hour later, David was at the headquarters of Golden Care Agency, located in an upscale neighborhood in Los Angeles, a company specializing in domestic workers for high-income families. The reception was elegant, with classic furniture and a subtle lavender scent in the air. "Dr. Thompson," greeted Marcia Smith, the agency owner, an elegant woman with platinum hair and a flawless suit. "It's an honor to have you here. I heard you're looking for a governess for your daughter." "I need someone special," David said, sitting in the offered leather chair. "It's not just about cleaning the house or preparing meals. My daughter, she needs someone who understands children, who has patience, who knows how to talk to her." Marcia opened a thick folder on the table. "I have several excellent candidates. This one here, for example, worked for 15 years with a traditional family in Beverly Hills, has experience with children, and speaks 3 languages. They spent the entire morning reviewing impressive resumes, women with degrees in education, international experience, impeccable references. They all seemed perfect on paper, but something bothered David. There was a technical coldness in those profiles that didn't match what he had witnessed the night before. Emily's desperate need for genuine affection, for real human connection. "Is there anyone else?" he asked after reviewing the 15th candidate. Marcia hesitated. "Well, there's a young woman who applied yesterday, but she may not fit the profile you're looking for. She doesn't have formal experience as a governess." "Show me." The resume that Marcia placed on the table was simple, almost rough compared to the others. Anna Smith, 28 years old, from a small town in Virginia. High school diploma, technical nursing course, experience as a caregiver for the elderly. She had spent the last 3 years in Chicago taking care of her sick grandmother, who had recently passed away. "Why does she want to work as a governess?" David asked. "She said she has always enjoyed taking care of people, especially children. She lost her grandmother a month ago and needs to start her life over. She lives in a boarding house in Chicago and—" Marcia paused, clearly hesitant. "Doctor, with all due respect, she is very simple. She doesn't have the refinement that families of your level usually look for." Something in the description intrigued David. Perhaps that was exactly what Emily needed, someone simple, genuine, without the cold formalities of well-trained staff. "I want to meet her. Dr. Thompson, I really think that—" "Marcia, I have trusted your work for years, but this time I want to do things differently. Call her." Anna arrived 2 hours later, clearly nervous. She was an average-height woman, with brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail, wearing a navy blue skirt and a white blouse that, although clean and pressed, clearly was not from an expensive brand. She carried a synthetic leather bag and a nervousness that showed in every movement. "Good afternoon, Doctor," she said, with a soft Virginia accent that immediately brought back childhood memories for David, when he still lived in the countryside before moving to Los Angeles. "Please have a seat. Tell me about yourself." Anna took a deep breath. "Doctor, I will be honest with you. I have never worked in a house like yours. I have never taken care of a child from a wealthy family, but I know how to care for people. I spent 3 years taking care of my grandmother, who had Alzheimer's, and before that, I helped raise my nephews back in Virginia." "Why do you want to work here?" She looked directly into his eyes, not averting her gaze. "Because when Mrs. Marcia told me about your daughter, about how she lost her mother at a young age, my heart ached. I also lost my mother early, Doctor. I know what that pain is, that emptiness, and if I can help in any way, even if it's just by making a nice meal or brushing her hair, I want to help." The brutal honesty and simplicity of her answer completely disarmed David. There were no artifices, no rehearsed answers, just a woman who had known pain and wanted to ease another's pain. "The girl's name is Emily. She's 8 years old and is—" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "She is special, very mature for her age, sometimes even too much." "A child who goes through trauma like that grows up too fast," Anna agreed, nodding her head in understanding. But inside, she's still a child, still needs cuddles, playtime, someone who truly listens to her. At that moment, David knew he had found what he was looking for. "Anna, would you like to meet Emily before I make a final decision?" Her face lit up. "Of course, Doctor, whenever you want. How about now? I can pick her up from school." And so, unknowingly, David Thompson took the first step toward a transformation that would change not only his daughter's life, but also reveal secrets that had been buried for years, waiting for the right moment to emerge and transform everything he believed he knew about family, love, and redemption. St. Mary's Academy stood majestically on Mother Cabrini Street. Its walls of exposed brick and well-kept gardens reflected the century-old tradition of the institution. David parked the Porsche Cayenne near the main gate, observing the typical late-afternoon bustle: elegant mothers in luxury SUVs, uniformed nannies pushing strollers, and children running across the manicured lawns with the boundless energy of privileged childhood. Anna, sitting in the passenger seat, watched everything with wide eyes. "Oh my God," she murmured. "It's bigger than the whole town where I grew up." David smiled discreetly. He had forgotten how intimidating that world could seem to outsiders. "Emily has been studying here since she was 4. It's a good school, but—" He hesitated. "Sometimes I think it's too cold for a child." The bell rang precisely at 5 in the afternoon, and the children began to exit in organized groups. Emily appeared, walking alone, her pink backpack weighing almost as much as she did. Her curly hair was tied in a loose ponytail, with a few strands escaping and framing her serious little face. She looked too small to carry such seriousness in her gaze. "That's her," David said, discreetly pointing. Anna watched the girl approach the car with slow steps, lacking the cheerful rush of the other children. There was something in Emily's posture that touched her deeply, a resignation that shouldn't exist in an 8-year-old. "Hi, Dad," Emily said, carefully climbing into the back seat. "Why did you come to pick me up today? Did something happen?" "Nothing much, Princess. I just wanted to introduce you to someone special." David adjusted the rear-view mirror to observe his daughter. "Emily, this is Anna. She will help us at home." Emily looked up and met Anna's kind gaze, who had turned in the front seat. "Hi, Emily. Your dad has told me many nice things about you." "Hi," the girl replied, with the polite manners she had learned in her social etiquette classes at school. "Are you going to replace Mrs. Sarah?" "No, sweetheart. Mrs. Sarah will still be with us. Anna will help especially with you," David explained, noticing how his daughter relaxed upon learning that Sarah would not be replaced. Stability was crucial for Emily, who had learned from a young age to fear change. They headed to Central Park, where David had rarely taken his daughter. The afternoon traffic was heavy, but it gave Anna time to observe Emily through the rear-view mirror. The girl gazed out the window with a thoughtful expression, occasionally responding to the polite questions from the new employee with monosyllables. "Emily, do you like playing in the park?" Anna asked, trying to break the ice. "Sometimes," the girl replied, keeping her eyes on the window. "But I can read well now, so I prefer books." Anna exchanged a meaningful glance with David. An 8-year-old preferring books over play was a clear sign of how Emily had matured early. They arrived at the park as the sun began to set, painting the sky with orange hues that competed with urban pollution. Central Park was bustling with activity, families having picnics, joggers running along the paths, couples flirting near the lake. "How about we go to the playground?" David suggested, pointing to the children's area. Emily hesitated. "Dad, I'm too grown up for the playground. The other kids will think it's weird." "Nonsense," Anna said, getting out of the car and extending her hand to the girl. "I love swings myself. And look how big I am." For the first time since they met, Emily smiled slightly. There was something in Anna's simplicity that put her at ease. Without the excessive formality of the adult she was used to, the new employee seemed genuinely interested in playing, not just supervising her. They walked along the park paths, and David noticed a subtle but noticeable transformation in his daughter's behavior. She began pointing things out to Anna: a dog chasing a frisbee, a family of ducks in the lake, a man playing guitar near the fountain. "That man plays just like my mom used to," Emily commented suddenly, stopping to listen to the music echoing through the afternoon. "She could play guitar and always sang to me before bed." Anna knelt down to be at eye level with the girl. "What beautiful song did she sing to you?" "I shot the cat," Emily replied with a nostalgic smile, but she changed the lyrics so the cat wouldn't die. It went, "I shot the cat, but the cat didn't die because I missed my aim and the kitty ran away." "Your mum was clever," Anna said, smiling. "I also don't like sad stories before bed. Back in Virginia, my grandma told me some funny stories about a mischievous character that were amusing but not scary. Can you tell me one?" Anna looked at David, who nodded encouragingly. They sat on a bench near the lake, and she began to tell about the antics of the mischievous character on her grandma's farm, how he hid the hens' eggs and tangled the horses' manes. Emily listened with growing attention, soon laughing at the escapades of the folklore character. "In my town, everyone knows someone who has seen the mischievous character," Anna shared. "My cousin swears he once saw him near the pond, smoking his pipe." "Does he really exist?" Emily asked, her eyes shining with curiosity. "Ah, you'll only know if you visit there one day," Anna replied, winking conspiratorially. David watched the interaction with growing fascination. In 20 minutes of conversation, Anna had achieved something he rarely saw: Emily behaving like a normal, curious, and excited child. There was no formality, no excessive caution that his daughter displayed with most adults. "Dad," Emily said suddenly, "can I play in the playground with Anna?" "Of course, Princess." They headed to the children's area, where Anna, surprised everyone, was swinging next to Emily. "Let's see who can swing higher," she challenged, laughing like a child. Emily accepted the challenge, and soon the two were competing to see who could get closer to the clouds. The sound of her daughter's laughter was music to David's ears. How long had it been since he heard her laugh like that, carefree and untroubled? "Higher, Anna, you can do it," Emily shouted, encouraging her new friend. "Oh my God, I'm going to fly away," Anna replied, pretending to be scared, which made Emily laugh even more. After the swings, they went to the slide. Anna went down backward, making funny faces that provoked laughter from Emily. Next, they played on the seesaw, singing children's songs that Anna knew from the time she took care of her nephews. "Anna," Emily said when they were resting, "are you going to sleep over at our house?" "If your dad agrees, yes. I have a little room reserved for me." Emily looked at her dad with a hopeful expression he hadn't seen in years. "Dad, can she stay? Please." "If Anna wants to, of course she can." "I really want to," Anna replied, and the sincerity in her voice was undeniable. When the sun had completely set and the park lights turned on, they walked back to the car. Emily had insisted on holding Anna's hand and was excitedly talking about plans for the next day. "Anna, do you know how to make cake?" "Mrs. Sarah does, but she never lets me help because she says I'll mess up the kitchen." "I do. And cake tastes much better when a child helps make it," Anna replied. "How about we make a chocolate cake tomorrow?" "Really? Can I mix the batter?" "You can mix, lick the spoon. You can even mess up the whole kitchen. Then we'll clean it together." In the car, on the way back, Emily fell asleep in the back seat with a smile on her face. It was the first time in months that David saw her sleep so peacefully, without the furrows of worry that often marked her sleep. "Dr. David," Anna said softly, so as not to wake the girl. "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Her mother, has it been a long time since she left?" David felt the familiar lump in his throat. 5 years. Emily was 3. Does the girl remember her? "More than I expected," he admitted. "Yesterday I found out that she prays every night asking for her mother to come back." Anna was silent for a moment, processing the information. Poor thing. It must be very hard for a child to understand why her mother left. "It's hard for me to understand too," David confessed, surprising himself with his own honesty. He rarely admitted his vulnerabilities to staff. "Doctor, can I say something?" "Go ahead." "Emily is a very special girl. You can see she's smart, polite, and caring. But you can also see that she carries a great sadness for her age. If you allow me, I would like to help bring back some of the joy that an 8-year-old should have." David looked in the rearview mirror at his sleeping daughter, her curly hair spread over the leather seat, a peaceful expression on her angelic face. "Anna, that's exactly why you're here." When they arrived home, David carried Emily in his arms to her room, while Anna followed them in silence. As he placed his daughter in bed, he noticed she was murmuring something in her sleep. "Thank you." "Our Lady," the sleeping girl whispered. "I think you sent an angel to take care of me." Anna and David exchanged an emotional glance. Unbeknownst to her, Emily had perfectly summed up what they both hoped would be the beginning of a new phase in their lives, a phase in which perhaps the house would cease to be just a place of passage and become a true home. 2 weeks after Anna's arrival, the Thompson household had transformed in a way David never thought possible. The smell of homemade cake wafting from the kitchen every morning replaced the cold silence of the hallways, and Emily's laughter echoed through the rooms with a frequency that warmed the heart of the workaholic businessman. It was a rainy Monday in June when the purple jacarandas lining Rodeo Drive began to bloom, painting the urban landscape with vibrant hues that contrasted with the melancholic grey of the Los Angeles winter. David had left for an emergency meeting with foreign investors, a crisis in the Asian market that required his immediate attention, leaving Anna to take care of Emily, who was on school break. Anna took advantage of the morning to tackle a task she had been postponing, organizing Emily's room. The girl had developed a habit of accumulating drawings, schoolwork, and little treasures in unexpected corners of her room, creating a creative mess that, while charming, needed organization. "Emily, my love, shall we organize these toys?" Anna suggested, finding the girl on the floor of her room surrounded by dolls, books, and puzzles. "How about we separate what you still play with from what can be donated to children who don't have toys?" Emily, who had become inseparable from Anna in the previous 2 weeks, eagerly agreed. She was wearing a yellow floral dress and had a pink ribbon in her curly hair, which Anna had learned to style in elaborate braids that made the girl feel like a princess. They started with the bookshelf, organizing the stories by size and color. Next, they moved on to the toy box, a carved wooden chest that had been a baptism gift for Emily. Anna carefully took out each item, asking the girl about her memories and preferences. "And this teddy bear here?" she asked, holding up a brown teddy bear, slightly faded with time and clearly very loved. "Oh, that's Brownie!" exclaimed Emily, grabbing the toy and hugging it tightly. "He was a gift from my mother when I was little. She said he would always protect me." Anna smiled tenderly. "Then he stays with you, of course. A gift from a mother is too special to be given away." They continued organizing for another hour, creating piles of toys to keep, donate, and store as memories. It was when Anna lifted the teddy bear again to place it in its special spot on the headboard that something unusual happened. A folded piece of paper slipped out from inside the bear, falling silently onto the plush carpet of the room. "What is this?" asked Emily, curious, moving closer to pick up the paper. Anna frowned, intrigued. The paper seemed to have come from a small opening in the bear's seam, as if someone had intentionally hidden something there. "I don't know, sweetheart. Let's see what it is." Emily carefully unfolded the paper, revealing delicate handwriting in blue ink. It was a letter, written on letterhead with a discreet seal at the top. Sisters of St. Clair Convent, a small town in Virginia. Anna felt her heart race. That town was her hometown. "Anna," said Emily, her eyes wide, "can you read what it says? There are some words I don't know." With slightly trembling hands, Anna took the letter and began to read aloud. "My dear daughter of my heart, today marks another month since I made the hardest decision of my life. I know you are still too little to understand why Mommy had to leave, but I want you to know that not a day goes by without me thinking of you, without my heart aching for your hugs and your sweet laughter. The sisters here help me find peace for my troubled soul, but nothing can soothe the pain of being away from you. I pray every night that you are growing strong and happy, that your daddy is taking good care of you, and that one day, when God allows, I can come back home and explain everything. I hold in my heart the memory of every moment we spent together. I remember when you were born, so tiny and perfect, and how my eyes filled with tears of joy when you opened those big eyes for the first time. I remember the mornings when you woke up singing, the afternoons we played in the garden, the nights when I sang you to sleep, your mother who never stopped loving you, Em. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily held the letter with her small, trembling hands, her big eyes fixed on the paper as if trying to decipher hidden secrets in the lines. Anna felt her heart racing, not only from the emotion of the discovery, but from the impossible coincidence of the address. The convent was only 15 kilometers from where she had grown up. "Anna," whispered Emily, her voice choked, "is this letter from my mother?" "It seems so, my love," replied Anna, embracing the girl who was starting to cry silently. "The letter is signed with M, and your mother was named Sarah, wasn't she?" Emily nodded, burying her face in Anna's shoulder. But if she wrote this letter, why did she never come back? Why didn't she ever send news?" Anna felt a lump in her throat. How could she explain to an 8-year-old the complexities of adult relationships, the mysterious reasons that lead people to disappear from the lives of those they love? "I don't know, Emily, but what's important is that she loves you very much. You can feel her love in every word of this letter." "Do you think she's still at that convent?" asked Emily, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Anna looked at the letterhead again. The paper seemed relatively new, lacking the yellowing that old letters usually have. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we can find out." "How?" "First, we'll show this letter to your father when he gets home. He will know what to do." Emily nodded, carefully folding the letter and holding it against her chest. "Anna, do you think if I write a letter to that convent, they will deliver it to my mother?" Anna's heart ached. The hope in the girl's voice was simultaneously beautiful and heartbreaking. "We can try, my love. Let's talk to your father about it." They spent the rest of the morning in a state of contained agitation. Emily couldn't focus on any activity, constantly returning to the letter, rereading it with Anna's help whenever she encountered a difficult word. Anna, in turn, couldn't stop thinking about the extraordinary coincidence. Of all the towns in the United States, the letter came from exactly her hometown. When David got home, at 2 in the afternoon, he found the two sitting in the living room, Emily still holding the letter against her chest like a precious treasure. "Daddy!" exclaimed the girl, running to hug him. "Something very important happened today." David looked at Anna, who nodded gravely. "What happened, Princess?" "We found a letter from Mommy," said Emily, extending the paper to her father with a mix of excitement and nervousness. David's world stopped. Slowly, he took the letter and read its contents, feeling a wave of conflicting emotions wash over him. Anger that Sarah had kept in touch without revealing herself. Relief, knowing she was alive. Confusion, not understanding the circumstances of the letter. And above all, a deep pain upon realizing the suffering that shone through his ex-wife's words. "Where did you find this?" he asked, his voice carefully controlled. "Inside the teddy bear," explained Anna. "It fell out when we were organizing the room. It was hidden in the seam." David examined the paper again, noticing details he had missed in the first reading. The date on the letterhead indicated that the letter had been written about 6 months ago. This meant that Emily was alive, and had thought about Sarah recently. "Dad," Emily said, climbing onto the arm of the chair where he had sat down, "can we go visit that convent? Can we look for Mom?" The question hit David like a punch. How could he explain to his daughter that it wasn't that simple? That he had spent a fortune on private investigators during the first 2 years after Sarah's disappearance, all without success? That there were times when he himself wasn't sure if he wanted to find her? "Princess," he said carefully, "it's very complicated. We don't know if your mum is still at that place, or if—" "But we can try," Emily interrupted, with a determination she rarely showed. "Please, Dad. If she's there, she must be waiting for us." Anna watched the interaction in silence, seeing the internal conflict unfolding on David's face. She recognized that expression. It was the same one she saw in her own mirror when she had to make tough decisions about people she loved. "David," she said gently, "can I speak with you privately for a moment?" David nodded, kissed Emily's forehead, and led her to the kitchen, leaving the girl in the living room flipping through an illustrated book, but clearly paying attention to the adults' conversation. "Doctor," Anna whispered, "I know about that small town in Virginia. I grew up 20 minutes from there. I know the Sisters of St. Clair Convent personally." David looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" "When I was a teenager, after my mom died, I spent a few months being cared for by the sisters there. They take in women in difficult situations, offering spiritual refuge. If Emily's mom really was there, the sisters will remember her. And would you be able to do some discreet inquiries?" Anna nodded. "I can call the Mother Superior today. Sister Beatrice is a very wise woman. She will know how to handle this situation delicately." David was silent for a moment, processing the possibilities. What if we find out that Sarah really was there, but has already left? What if we discover things that will hurt Emily even more? What if we find out that she is still there, waiting for a chance to reconnect with her daughter? Anna gently countered. "Doctor, from the tone of that letter, Emily's mother did not abandon the family out of lack of love. Something very serious must have happened for her to make that decision." That afternoon, while Emily drew imaginary letters to her mother at the kitchen table and Anna prepared dinner, David made a decision that would change the course of their lives forever. He would allow Anna to investigate, and so, unknowingly, he took the first step toward revelations that would completely transform his understanding of family, forgiveness, and the mysterious circumstances that led Sarah to disappear from their lives 5 years ago. The phone call took place the next morning, a grey Tuesday in June, when the persistent drizzle created a melancholic veil over Los Angeles. Anna had waited for Emily to leave for her tutoring classes before dialing the number she had memorized for years. The convent that had been her refuge during the most difficult months of her adolescence. David watched nervously from the office chair as Anna spoke on the phone from the living room, her voice low and respectful, echoing in the quiet space. He had cancelled 2 important meetings to be present at that moment, a decision that surprised his assistant Sandra, who was used to the rigidity of her boss's schedule. Sister Beatrice, this is Anna Smith. Yes, the granddaughter of Mrs. Johnson, she said on the phone, a nostalgic smile blooming on her face. I'm fine, thank you. Sister, I need your help with a delicate situation. Anna carefully explained the situation. The letter found, the child searching for her mother, the shattered family needing answers. She spoke about David Thompson without mentioning his wealth, describing him only as a desperate father trying to understand the past, to protect his daughter's future. On the other end of the line, Sister Beatrice listened in silence, occasionally asking pointed questions about dates and circumstances. She was a 70-year-old woman whose wisdom had been built over decades of welcoming people in crisis, and she knew how to recognize sincerity in Anna's voice. "Anna, my child," the sister finally said, "you know we have strict policies regarding the privacy of the people who come to us. I cannot disclose information about who has been here or when." "I understand, sister." But the child found a letter with the convent's letterhead. "She is only 8 years old and believes her mother might be here. We are not asking for detailed information, just guidance on how to proceed." There was a long pause. Anna could hear the distant sound of church bells through the phone line, instantly transporting her back to the days when she walked the stone corridors of the convent, finding peace among the centuries-old walls. "Let me make some discreet inquiries," Sister Beatrice finally said. "I can't promise anything, but if there is a way to help this family without breaking our vows of confidentiality, we will try to find her." "Thank you, sister. Do you have my number?" "I do. I will call by Friday with what I can find out. And, Anna, it's good to know that you are well and helping others. Your grandmother would be proud." When Anna hung up the phone, David approached anxiously. "So? She will investigate discreetly. Sister Beatrice is a very wise person. If there is a way to help without breaking the convent's rules, she will find it." The next 3 days felt like an eternity for everyone in the house. Emily, unaware of the adults' inquiries, had started writing letters to her mother, addressed to the convent. Anna kept them carefully, promising to send them when they had more information. David, for his part, found himself torn between the hope of finding answers and the fear of what those answers might reveal. On Thursday night, when they were having dinner on the terrace of the house, a new ritual that Anna had introduced to create family moments, Emily asked a question that caught the adults off guard. "Anna, have you ever lost someone very important?" Anna stopped eating, the forkful of frozen lasagna suspended in the air. "Why do you ask that, my love?" "Because sometimes you have that sad face when you think no one is looking, just like my dad does." David looked up from his plate, surprised by his daughter's keen perception. Emily had learned to read the emotions of adults with a precision that was both impressive and concerning for a child her age. "It's true, Emily," Anna admitted after a moment of hesitation. "I've lost many important people, my mother, my grandmother, some friends." "And does it hurt a lot?" "Yes, it does. But you know what I've learned? That the pain of love is better than the absence of love. Even when we lose someone, the love they gave us continues to live inside our hearts." Emily absorbed the words in silence, chewing thoughtfully. "Do you think my mom still loves me, even from afar?" "I am absolutely sure of that," Anna replied, exchanging a meaningful glance with David. "A mother's love is the most powerful force in the universe." On Friday, the anticipated call finally came. Anna answered on the first ring, her heart racing with anxiety. David, who was reviewing contracts in the office, set everything aside to join the conversation. "Anna," said Sister Beatrice's calm voice, "I have some information that may help you." "Go ahead, sister." "A woman named Sarah was with us for about 8 months between late 2019 and mid-2020. She arrived in a state of great emotional distress and remained in spiritual retreat during that time. Anna felt her heart race. Is she still there? No, my daughter, she left nearly 2 years ago, but the sister paused significantly. She left some letters to be delivered on specific dates. The last one was sent about 6 months ago. The puzzle began to form in Anna's mind. The letter that Emily had found had been sent 6 months ago, exactly during the period mentioned by the sister. Sister Beatrice, do you know where she went when she left the convent? I can't give specific details, but I can say that she had prepared to face some personal challenges. She spoke a lot about a small daughter she had left behind and the need to become a better person before attempting a reunion. David, who was listening to the conversation on speakerphone, felt a complex mix of emotions. Anger at being abandoned, but also a reluctant understanding that Sarah might have had reasons he had never considered. Is there anything else you can tell us? Anna asked. She often mentioned a problem. How can I say, a struggle with dependencies that developed after the birth of her daughter, postpartum depression that evolved into more complex situations. She felt she needed to heal completely before returning to her family. The revelation hit David like a bolt of lightning. Postpartum depression, dependencies. Suddenly, Sarah's sudden disappearance began to make sense in a way he had never considered. During the first months after Emily's birth, he had been so busy expanding the business that he hadn't noticed the signs that his wife was battling invisible demons. Sister, Anna said carefully, is there any way we can get in touch with her? Her daughter really needs answers. Unfortunately, we do not have information about her current whereabouts, but the sister hesitated. I can suggest that you search in the area. She spoke a lot about Richmond and nearby towns. She mentioned that there were people there who could help her. When the call ended, Anna and David remained silent for long minutes, processing the information they had received. The mystery of Sarah's disappearance was slowly unraveling, revealing not the selfish abandonment David had imagined for years, but a complex human tragedy involving mental illness and the desperation of a mother who believed she was protecting her daughter by stepping away. Dr. David, Anna finally said, what are we going to do with this information? David looked out the window, where the city lights were beginning to flicker on in the twilight. We're going to Virginia, he decided. Emily deserves to know the truth, and I need to understand what really happened. And if we don't find her, then at least we tried. But if we find her, he paused, confronting fears he had buried for years, then we will have to deal with the consequences, whatever they may be. That night, when Emily returned from school, the adults decided to tell her about the call, adapting the information appropriately for her age. The girl listened intently, her big eyes shining with a mix of hope and anxiety. So, are we going to travel to Virginia? She asked, barely able to contain her excitement. Yes, Princess, David confirmed, but you need to understand that we may not find your mom. She may not be in the area anymore. But at least we'll look, right, Dad? We will look, he promised, hugging his daughter and feeling, for the first time in years, that he was making the right decision. Anna watched father and daughter embrace and smiled discreetly. There was something profoundly poetic about the fact that her own story was intertwining with theirs, leading everyone back to the mountains of Virginia, where perhaps they would find not only answers about the past, but also the healing they all needed to build a stronger future. The journey was just beginning, but for the first time since Sarah had disappeared, David Thompson felt he was walking in the right direction. The trip to Virginia was planned for the following week, during the July school break. David had booked a suite at the Bridge Inn, a boutique hotel in Richmond known for its preserved colonial architecture and in a cozy atmosphere. The choice was not casual. He wanted Emily to experience the simplicity and authenticity of the culture from Virginia, something very different from the cosmopolitan environment of São Paulo that she was used to. On the morning of their departure, a sunny Monday promising one of the rare rain-free days of the winter in São Paulo, the Thompson household buzzed with activity. Anna had prepared a well-packed suitcase for Emily, including warm clothes for the mountainous climate and some special toys for the trip. Mrs. Sarah, although not accompanying them, insisted on preparing a snack for the road, with the traditional treats she had learned to make from Anna herself. "Dad, how long does it take to get there?" asked Emily for the 10th time, bouncing excitedly around the living room while David checked the travel documents. "About 4 hours driving, Princess. Enough time for you to see the landscape change completely." David had decided to make the trip by car instead of flying, wanting his daughter to experience the gradual transition from the metropolis to the countryside. The Range Rover was fueled and serviced, with an updated GPS and a carefully curated playlist of children's songs and classics from Brazilian music. Anna was visibly nervous, constantly fiddling with her hair and checking her bag for the 5th time. Returning to her hometown after so many years, especially under such emotionally charged circumstances, made her anxious. But at the same time, there was a familiar excitement in the prospect of showing Emily and David the landscapes that had shaped her childhood. "Anna," said Emily, noticing the caregiver's nervousness, "are you okay?" "I am, my love. It's just that it's been a long time since I went back home. I'm a little anxious." "It'll be fun for you to show us the places where you played when you were a kid," exclaimed the girl, hugging Anna with the spontaneous affection that had become a hallmark of their relationship. They left at 9 in the morning, when the traffic in São Paulo still allowed for a smooth exit from the city. David drove carefully, watching in the rearview mirror as Emily absorbed every change in the landscape. First, the skyscrapers gave way to middle-class condominiums in the peripheral neighborhoods. Then, industries and factories created an urban industrial landscape that gradually made way for the first signs of the Virginia countryside. "Look, Dad, the houses are getting different," observed Emily as they passed through a small town in Virginia, pointing at the shorter buildings and spacious backyards, replacing the compact apartments of the capital. "That's right, Princess. Here people have more space to plant gardens and raise animals." Anna, sitting in the passenger seat, seized the moment to start preparing Emily for the cultural differences they would encounter. "In Virginia, people speak a little differently than we do, Emily. They are very hospitable, love to chat, and always offer food to visitors." "What kind of food?" asked the girl, intrigued. "Sugar bread, corn cake, fresh cheese, caramel." "Oh, and the famous cheese bread that your grandma always talks about." David smiled, watching how Anna was naturally taking on the role of cultural guide for the trip. There was something comforting in the way she shared her memories, creating bridges between Emily's sophisticated world and the simple traditions of the countryside. When they crossed the border between São Paulo and Virginia, passing through a small town in Virginia, the landscape transformed dramatically. The mountains began to appear on the horizon, covered by dense vegetation that created a mosaic of greens in different shades. The air, even inside the air-conditioned car, felt cleaner and fresher. "Wow, Dad, look at the size of those mountains," exclaimed Emily, her face pressed against the window. "Those are the Mantiqueira Mountains and the Deer Mountain," explained Anna, also excited to see the familiar landscape again. "When I was little, my grandma used to say they were sleeping giants protecting our region." They stopped for lunch in Richmond, the town that Sister Beatrice had mentioned as a possible clue about Sarah's whereabouts. David had chosen a traditional restaurant in the historic center, a colonial house transformed into a dining establishment serving authentic Virginia food. The museum restaurant was located in an 18th century building with stone walls, wooden beams on the ceiling, and rustic furniture that created a cozy and nostalgic atmosphere. Emily looked around in fascination, carefully touching the local crafts displayed on the walls. "Welcome," greeted Mrs. Johnson, the restaurant owner, a lady with white hair and a warm smile who immediately embraced Anna as if they were old friends. "What a beautiful girl, and how elegant you all are for our simple town," Anna laughed, feeling immediately at home. "Mrs. Johnson, these are my friends from São Paulo, David and Emily Thompson. We are visiting the region." "Oh, how wonderful. Sit here at the window table, which has the prettiest view of the Rosary Church." Lunch was a cultural experience for Emily, who tried for the first time the traditional bean dish, chicken with okra and sautéed greens. Initially hesitant, she soon fell in love with the new flavors, especially the fresh cheese that melted in her mouth. "Anna, this food is so good. Why don't we eat like this at home?" asked the girl, provoking laughter from the adults. "Because in São Paulo life is very fast, my love. Here people have more time to cook with care." During dessert, a creamy caramel accompanied by fresh cheese, Mrs. Johnson approached to chat. There was something in David's demeanor that intrigued the experienced owner, accustomed to receiving tourists from all walks of life. "Are you just sightseeing, or are you looking for something specific?" she asked, with the natural curiosity of Virginians. Anna exchanged a glance with David, who discreetly nodded. "Actually, Mrs. Johnson, we are looking for a person, a woman named Sarah, who may have passed through the region in recent years." "Sarah who?" "Sarah Thompson," David said, deciding to take a risk. "My ex-wife. She disappeared 5 years ago, and we have reason to believe she may have been in the area recently." Mrs. Johnson frowned, thoughtful. She was a woman who knew practically all the residents of the town and many of the regular visitors. "Sarah Thompson. That name sounds familiar. Do you have a picture of her?" David hesitated. He had brought some photographs of Sarah in his wallet, but showing them to strangers felt like an invasion of his ex-wife's privacy. On the other hand, that was exactly why they had made the trip. He pulled out a photo of Sarah taken a few months before her disappearance. In the image, she was smiling at the camera, holding baby Emily in her arms, her light brown hair cascading over her shoulders, and that sweet look that had won David's heart years ago. Mrs. Johnson studied the photograph carefully, putting on the glasses that hung from her neck. "This young woman, yes, she has been here a few times, but not under that name." David's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "She introduced herself as Sarah Silver. She would come to the restaurant now and then, always alone, always very reserved. She spoke little, but she was polite. I remember once she asked about rehabilitation clinics in the area." Anna and David exchanged meaningful glances. The puzzle piece was falling into place. Sarah had indeed been in the area, possibly seeking treatment for the issues mentioned by Sister Beatrice. "Do you remember when was the last time you saw her?" Anna asked. "About 6 months ago, perhaps. She seemed better the last time, more, how can I say, more at peace with herself." Emily, who had been listening to the conversation in silence, suddenly spoke up. "Mrs. Johnson, do you know where she is now?" The innocent question from the child touched the woman's heart, and she knelt down to be at eye level with the girl. "I don't know, my dear. But if she is your mother, I'm sure wherever she is, she thinks of you every day." They finished lunch with more clues than they had arrived with, but also with more questions. Sarah had indeed been in the area, had used a false name, and had sought treatment. This confirmed suspicions about dependency issues, but also showed that she had taken steps to recover. The rest of the journey to Richmond passed in a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The landscape became increasingly spectacular, with mountains drawing closer and small colonial towns appearing among the valleys like historical jewels preserved in time. When they finally spotted the Baroque towers of Richmond in the late afternoon, with the setting sun painting the sky gold and pink, Emily sighed in admiration. "Dad, it looks like a fairy tale place." David smiled, feeling for the first time in years a strange peace filling his chest. Perhaps it was the fresh mountain air, perhaps it was the serene beauty of the landscape, or perhaps it was simply the feeling that they were finally on the right path. "It really is a special place, Princess," he agreed, driving down the cobblestone main street toward the hotel. Anna watched the familiar streets with tears in her eyes. She was home, and for the first time in years, she felt she was exactly where she was meant to be, helping the people she loved find what they had lost. The journey to the mountains had been just the first step. Now, the real search would begin. The hotel The Bridge Inn proved to be the perfect refuge for the small family. Located in a carefully restored 18th century colonial mansion, the establishment maintained its historical charm with intricately carved wooden balconies and blooming inner gardens, while also offering the modern comfort that David considered essential for Emily. The family suite occupied the entire second floor of the main wing, with windows that opened to a stunning view of St. Mary's Church and the surrounding mountains. Emily immediately ran to the balcony, leaning against the wooden railing to contemplate the landscape that looked like it was straight out of a postcard. "Anna, look! You can see the whole church from here, and those mountains look like someone painted them in the sky." Anna joined the girl on the balcony, taking a deep breath of the clean afternoon air. The scent of jasmine from the hotel garden mixed with the distant aroma of wood burning in the town's houses, creating a cozy atmosphere that immediately transported her back to her childhood. "It really is beautiful, my love. When I was little, I used to come here with my grandmother for the church festivals. She always said that Richmond was a little piece of heaven that God forgot on earth." David watched the interaction between the two from the balcony door, feeling a strange emotion. For the first time in years, he saw Emily completely relaxed, without the subtle tension she always carried on her shoulders in Los Angeles. There was something in the simplicity of that place that allowed his daughter to just be an 8-year-old girl, curious and enchanted by the world. After settling in and resting from the trip, they decided to explore the town. The cobblestone streets echoed with the sound of their footsteps as they walked through the historic center, passing colonial mansions transformed into inns, restaurants, and studios of local artists. "Dad, why are the streets like this, all uneven?" Emily asked, trying to balance herself on the uneven cobblestones. "These are very old stones, Princess, laid down over 200 years ago. Back then, there were no machines to make smooth streets like in Los Angeles." They stopped at the famous St. Mary's Church, where Anna explained to Emily about Baroque art and the stories of the saints painted on the ceiling. The girl listened attentively, asking questions that revealed a keen curiosity about history and culture. "Anna, that angel up there on the ceiling looks like it's crying. Why do angels cry?" "Sometimes they cry tears of joy when they see good people doing beautiful things. Other times they cry tears of sadness when they see people suffering." "Do you think they cry when they see children? Are you looking for your mothers?" The unexpected question hit Anna like a punch in the stomach. Emily had made the connection so naturally, so innocently, that for a moment she didn't know how to respond. David, who was walking a few steps behind, approached and placed his hand on his daughter's shoulder. "I think angels are happy when they see brave children like you who don't give up on finding those they love," he said, surprising himself with the spontaneity of his response. That night they dined at the hotel restaurant, a covered terrace that offered a panoramic view of the illuminated city. The yellowish lights from the Colonial windows created a romantic and melancholic scene, while the distant sound of a guitar echoed from a nearby bar. The next day, Anna suggested they visit the Sisters of St. Clair Convent. It was a 15-minute drive from Richmond, on a dirt road that wound through hills covered with lush greenery. The convent was a simple yet imposing structure with white walls and a red clay roof, surrounded by meticulously maintained gardens where sisters in blue habits worked quietly among the vegetables. Sister Beatrice welcomed them at the entrance with the serenity typical of someone who had dedicated decades to spiritual service. She was a small woman with completely white hair under her veil, but with bright, penetrating eyes that seemed to read people's souls. "Anna, my dear," she exclaimed, embracing the young woman with maternal affection. "How you've grown into a beautiful woman. Sister Beatrice, thank you for having us. This is David Thompson and his daughter Emily." The sister bent down to greet Emily, who was watching her with a mix of curiosity and shyness. "What a lovely girl! Your eyes shine like stars." "Thank you, sister," Emily replied politely. "Did you know my mother?" The child's direct question caught everyone off guard. Sister Beatrice looked at David, who nodded almost imperceptibly, giving her permission to be honest. "Yes, my dear. Your mother spent some time with us here at the convent." "Was she sick?" "She was, with a very hurt heart. Sometimes adults have hurt hearts and need a quiet place to heal." Emily absorbed the explanation with the seriousness of an adult. "And did she get better?" "She was much better when she left here. She always talked about you, saying she wanted to be strong to be a better mother." They walked through the convent gardens as Sister Beatrice carefully and appropriately shared more details about Sarah's stay. She had arrived in a state of deep depression, struggling with medication dependency she had developed after the birth of her daughter. "She was a very sensitive person," the sister explained, as they watched Emily play with a cat that had appeared among the rose bushes. "The birth of the baby, the pressures of being the wife of a very busy man, the feeling of being alone even when married, all of this left her very fragile." David felt a stab of guilt. "Sister, I never realized. I thought she was just tired from motherhood." "Don't blame yourself, my son. Postpartum depression is silent, especially in women who have been taught to always appear strong." Sarah felt guilty for not being the perfect mother she thought she should be. Anna watched Emily play, her heart tightening at the thought of a mother who had distanced herself from her daughter, believing her presence could harm her. "Sister Beatrice," David said, "do you have any idea where she might be now?" The sister hesitated, clearly struggling between the desire to help and her vows of confidentiality. "I can only say that she often mentioned a clinic in Richmond, a place where people in recovery learn to work with occupational therapy." "Do you remember the name of the clinic?" "Hope House. It's on the outskirts of the city near the river." The information was like a ray of light in the darkness. They finally had a concrete lead, a specific place to search. But at the same time, the confirmation that Sarah had struggled with substance dependency brought an emotional complexity that David was not prepared to face. They said goodbye to the sister with promises to keep in touch, and Emily insisted on leaving one of the letters she had written for her mother in case she returned to the convent. Sister Beatrice carefully stored the letter, promising to deliver it if the opportunity arose. During lunch at the hotel, they discussed whether they should go immediately to Richmond or wait until the next day. Emily, naturally, voted to go as soon as possible. "Dad, if Mom is at that clinic, she might leave if we take too long." David looked at Anna, seeking guidance. "What do you think?" "I think we should go this afternoon, but..." She hesitated. "Maybe it would be better for you two to go first, to to assess the situation before Emily meets her mother. "No!" Emily protested immediately. "I want to go with you. She's my mom." The determination in the girl's voice was absolute. David realized there would be no convincing her to stay behind, and perhaps it was better that way. If Sarah was indeed at the clinic, it would be a reunion that needed to happen as naturally as possible. 2 hours later, they were driving down the road leading to Richmond, all their hearts racing. Hope House was located on a renovated farm on the outskirts of the city, a complex of simple buildings surrounded by green lawns and leafy trees. As they passed through the entrance gate, David felt that their lives were about to change forever. He didn't know if it would be for better or worse, but there was the inescapable feeling that the past was finally about to meet the present, forcing them all to confront truths that had been buried for years. Emily, in the back seat, held tightly to her teddy bear and whispered a silent prayer. Anna took a deep breath, preparing to be the emotional support that this family needed. Ricardo Thompson needed answers in the coming hours, and David Thompson, the man who had built an empire based on control and predictability, was preparing for the most unpredictable moment of his life, the reunion with the woman he had loved, lost, and never completely forgotten. Hope House awaited them, and with it, answers that would change everything they believed they knew about family, forgiveness, and the complex nature of human love. Hope House turned out to be a surprisingly welcoming institution. Located on an old 19th-century coffee plantation, the complex had been carefully adapted to function as a rehabilitation and social reintegration center. Therapeutic gardens stretched between the main buildings, where patients at different stages of recovery worked quietly, cultivating vegetables and flowers that would be sold at the local market. David parked the Range Rover near the administrative building, a colonial structure with white walls and blue windows that exuded tranquility. Emily got out of the car, firmly holding Anna's hand, her big eyes observing everything with a mix of curiosity and anxiety. "Dad, are you sure Mum is here?" she asked for the 5th time since they had left the hotel. "We're not sure, sweetheart, but we'll find out," David replied, trying to keep his voice calm despite the whirlwind of emotions he felt. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with a warm smile, greeted them at the front desk. She wore a floral apron over a simple dress, and a discreet crucifix hung around her neck, suggesting that the institution had roots in the Catholic tradition of social assistance. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" David hesitated. How could he explain the situation without sounding like a possessive husband chasing after an ex-wife in recovery? "Good afternoon. We're looking for someone who might be receiving treatment here, Sarah Thompson, or perhaps she's using the last name Johnson." The receptionist frowned. "Sir, we have very strict policies regarding our patients' privacy. I cannot confirm or deny anyone's presence without specific authorization." Anna stepped forward, sensing the impasse. "Ma'am, we completely understand the policies. It's just that this is her daughter," she said, placing a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. "The girl has been looking for her mother for a long time." The receptionist's expression softened at the sight of Emily. It was impossible not to feel compassion for the child's situation, who looked at her with a mix of hope and vulnerability that would touch any heart. "Let me speak with the coordinator," she finally said. "Please wait here for a moment." They sat in a simple yet cozy waiting room, decorated with handmade crafts created by the patients themselves. There were watercolor paintings depicting Virginia landscapes, clay sculptures, and a small library with books on recovery and spirituality. Emily was idly flipping through a children's book about nature when a woman in her 50s approached. She was tall and slender, with grey hair tied in a bun and a demeanor that conveyed competence and compassion in equal measure. "Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Carmen Johnson, the therapeutic coordinator of the institution," she said, extending her hand to David. "I understand you're looking for someone." David stood up, feeling the weight of the moment. "Doctor, we're looking for my ex-wife. She disappeared 5 years ago, leaving our daughter," he said, indicating Emily. "We have information that she may be here for treatment." Dr. Carmen observed Emily with professional attention. "What is the full name of the person you're looking for?" "Sarah Thompson, formerly Johnson." The doctor paused, for a moment, clearly assessing the situation. There were protocols to follow, but also a child involved whose well-being needed to be considered. "Mr. Thompson, may I speak with you privately for a moment?" David looked at Anna, who nodded encouragingly. "Emily, how about you stay here looking at those books while your dad talks to the doctor?" "Okay," the girl agreed, although it was clear she preferred to be part of the conversation. Dr. Carmen led David to an adjacent room, closing the door behind them. The environment was professional yet welcoming, with diplomas on the walls and a desk covered in organized files. "Mr. Thompson," she began, sitting behind the desk, "before anything else, I need to understand your intentions. Why are you looking for your ex-wife after 5 years?" The question was direct, almost confrontational, but David sensed it came from a place of protection for the institution's patients. "Doctor, my daughter is suffering. She prays every night for her mother to come back, blaming herself for the abandonment we experienced. I'm not here to rekindle a marriage or cause trouble. I just want my daughter to have answers." Dr. Carmen studied him carefully. "And what if those answers are painful? What if your ex-wife isn't ready for a reunion? Then we'll deal with it, but I can't watch my daughter wither away without knowing the truth about why she was abandoned." The doctor nodded slowly. "Sarah has been with us for approximately 18 months. David's heart raced. She was there. She was really there. How is she?" "She has made significant progress. When she arrived, she was in critical condition from substance dependence and severe depression. Today, she works in our occupational therapy workshop and has been relapse-free for 8 months. David felt a complex mix of relief and pain. Relief to know that Sarah was alive and recovering, pain to realize how severe her condition had been. Does she talk about Emily?" "Constantly. She is her primary motivation for recovery." Dr. Carmen paused significantly. "But she is also her greatest source of guilt and anxiety. She is very afraid of reuniting with her daughter and causing more pain." "Doctor, would it be possible for them to see each other, even if briefly?" "Mr. Thompson, a reunion under these circumstances needs to be carefully planned. It cannot be something impulsive." "I understand, but—" The conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Anna appeared with Emily beside her, both visibly agitated. "Dr. David," Anna said, "Emily saw something in the garden." "What was it, sweetheart?" David asked, kneeling to his daughter's level. "Dad, I saw a woman in the garden who looks like Mom. As she was watering the flowers and saw me through the window, she dropped the watering can and ran out." Dr. Carmen closed her eyes for a moment, realizing that the situation had spiraled out of her control. "Mr. Thompson, I think we have no choice. Sarah saw them through the window. She must be in a panic right now." "Where is she now?" "Probably hiding in her room. It's her typical reaction in stressful situations. Isolation." Emily tugged at her father's blazer sleeve. "Daddy, was it really her? Was it my mum?" The innocent question from the child broke down the last professional barriers of Dr. Carmen. "Emily, your mum is here, yes, but she is very nervous, and we need to be careful not to scare her even more." "She doesn't want to see me?" Emily's voice was heavy with sorrow. "It's not that, my love," Anna rushed to explain. "Your mom loves you very much, but sometimes adults get scared of not being good enough." Dr. Carmen made a decision. "I'll go to her room. Maybe I can convince her to come talk to us, but I need you to wait here and understand that this may not happen today." 20 minutes passed like an eternity. Emily alternated between sitting quietly and pacing nervously around the room, while David and Anna exchanged tense glances. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made everyone turn expectantly toward the door. Finally, Dr. Carmen returned, accompanied by a figure that made time stop. Sarah stood at the door, visibly thinner than David remembered, her light brown hair now short and straight, her hands trembling slightly. She wore simple clothes, faded jeans and a white blouse, but there was something in her eyes that was both the Sarah he had loved and a completely new person. "Emily?" she whispered, her voice breaking. The girl froze for a moment, as if she couldn't believe that the moment she had dreamed of for 5 years was finally happening. Then, without warning, she ran across the room and threw herself into her mother's arms. "Mommy! Mommy, I knew you would come back. I prayed every day and knew that Our Lady would bring you back." Sarah collapsed, hugging her daughter with a strength that seemed to want to reclaim 5 lost years in a single moment. Tears streamed freely down her face as she breathed in the scent of Emily's hair, memorizing every detail of the moment. "My love, my princess, how you've grown, how beautiful you are." David watched the scene with tears in his eyes, feeling an indescribable emotion. It was the moment Emily had dreamed of, but also the confirmation that life would never be simple again. Anna discussed a solution, moved to witness the reunion she had helped make possible. "Mommy," Emily said, pulling back slightly to look at her mother's face. "Why did you leave? Did I do something wrong?" The question broke the hearts of everyone present. Sarah held her daughter's face in her hands, her eyes filled with tears. "No, my love. You never did anything wrong. You are perfect. You are the best daughter a mother could have. Mommy was very sick and had to leave to get better. But now you're better. Now you can come home." Sarah looked over Emily's head, meeting David's eyes. There was so much to be said, so many explanations needed, so much forgiveness to be asked for and offered. "Emily," Dr. Carmen said gently, "how about we show your mum the drawings you brought? We can sit in the garden and talk calmly." In the next few minutes, the shattered family found a moment of peace in the gardens of Hope House. Emily showed Sarah all the drawings she had made of her over the years, talked about school, about Anna, about how she had learned to make cheese bread. Sarah listened to every word with absolute attention, as if she were recording every moment in her memory. When Emily mentioned Anna, she looked at the young woman with infinite gratitude. "Thank you," she simply said, and Anna knew that those 2 words carried the weight of years of care and love dedicated to Sarah's daughter. As the sun began to set, painting the Virginia sky with orange hues, Dr. Carmen suggested it was time for Emily to return to the hotel. The girl protested, afraid that her mother would disappear again. "Mommy, will you come have dinner with us at the hotel? Please." Sarah looked at Dr. Carmen, who shook her head discreetly. "My love, Mommy needs to stay here tonight. But tomorrow we can talk more. Do you promise you won't leave again?" "I promise I will never leave without explaining to you," Sarah said, sealing the promise with a kiss on her daughter's forehead. On the way back to the hotel, Emily talked non-stop about the reunion, about how beautiful her mom looked, about the plans for the next day. David drove in silence, processing the emotional complexity of what had happened. Anna observed both father and daughter, realizing that the reunion, while beautiful, had opened wounds that would take time to heal. The healing journey for that family was just beginning. That night, Emily slept hugging Teddy, whispering prayers of gratitude instead of the desperate requests she had made for years. But David remained awake, looking out the hotel window at the distant lights of Hope House, knowing that the next day would bring difficult conversations that would define their future. The reunion had happened. Now it was time to find out if a family could be rebuilt from the fragments of love, pain, and forgiveness that remained after 5 years of separation. The dawn in Richmond brought with it a dense fog that enveloped the mountains like a silver veil, creating an almost mystical atmosphere over the historic town. David had spent most of the sitting on the hotel balcony. He spent a sleepless night watching the stars slowly fade from the sky as dawn broke. His mind was racing with questions that needed answers. How to rebuild a family after 5 years of abandonment. How to forgive someone who had caused so much pain. How to protect Emily from the inevitable conflicts that lay ahead. Emily woke up earlier than usual, radiating energy that contrasted with her father's emotional exhaustion. She had slept soundly for the first time in weeks, comforted by the certainty that her mother was alive, nearby, and had promised not to disappear again. "Daddy, can we go see Mommy now?" she asked, bouncing on the parents' bed, with the typical spontaneity of children whose hopes have been renewed. "Princess, first we'll have breakfast, and then we'll call Dr. Carmen to arrange a suitable time," David replied, hugging his daughter and feeling a pang of anxiety in his stomach. The day would be filled with difficult conversations. Anna joined them for breakfast on the hotel terrace, where a table had been set with traditional snacks: warm sweet bread, jelly, fresh cheese, and freshly brewed coffee that filled the air with an aroma that awakened all the senses. The morning scene, with the first rays of sun dissipating the mist and revealing the lush landscape of the mountains, should have been relaxing, but everyone felt the tension hanging in the air like an almost physical presence. "Anna," Emily said, carefully spreading jelly on her bread, "do you think my mom will want to live with us in Los Angeles?" The question caught Anna off guard. She exchanged a worried glance with David, realizing that the girl had spent the night building fantasies about a perfect family reunion that might not be possible. "My love, those are adult decisions that need to be discussed very carefully," she replied diplomatically. "The important thing is that you have reunited now and can talk about everything." David watched his daughter chew thoughtfully, clearly processing information too complex for her age. "Emily, you need to understand that your mom is still receiving treatment at the clinic. She can't just leave there." "But she's better now, right, Daddy? She seemed fine yesterday." "Healing sometimes takes longer than we would like, Princess. It's like when you break a bone. Even after the cast comes off, you still need physical therapy to get strong again." The call to Dr. Carmen was made at 9 in the morning. The doctor had spent the night talking with Sarah, preparing her psychologically for the upcoming meetings and setting clear boundaries to protect both the patient and the family. "Mr. Thompson," she said over the phone, "Sarah was very restless last night. The reunion with Emily stirred up many emotions that she has been trying to process during months of therapy. I need you to understand that today will be a difficult day for her." "Doctor, we are prepared for that. We just want what's best for everyone." "Great. I suggest you come around 2 in the afternoon. Sarah requested to speak with you privately first, before seeing Emily again. There are things she needs to explain." The morning passed slowly. They visited some local artists' studios, where Emily bought a small hand-painted ceramic angel that she wanted to give to her mother as a gift. They had lunch at a restaurant in the main square, watching the calm flow of the city and trying to keep conversations light to disguise the growing anxiety. They arrived at Hope House promptly at 2 o'clock. Dr. Carmen greeted them with a professional smile, but David noticed the concern in her eyes. "Emily," the doctor said, How about we play a little in the garden while your dad talks with your mom? Anna can stay with you, and then you can join us." "I don't want to be away from Mommy again," Emily protested, clinging to her father's arm. "It will only be for a few minutes, my love," Anna reassured her. "Adults need to talk about adult things first." Sarah was waiting in an occupational therapy room, sitting at a table covered with ongoing crafts. There were half-painted ceramic pieces, colourful crochet, and drawings that clearly depicted memories of her daughter. When David entered, she looked up with an expression of vulnerability that hit him like a punch in the stomach. She was different from the woman who had abandoned the family 5 years earlier, thinner, with lines of expression that revealed suffering, but there was also a clarity in her eyes that he didn't remember seeing before. It was as if the fragmented woman who had left had reorganized herself into someone completely new. "Hi, David," she said simply, her voice slightly hoarse with emotion. "Hi, Sarah." He sat in the chair indicated by Dr. Carmen, maintaining a respectful distance. "How are you?" "Better than I've been in years. Scared, but better." She took a deep breath. "I know I need to explain a lot. Emily deserves explanations. I deserve them too." Sarah nodded, rubbing her hands nervously. "David, when I left you, I was in a self-destructive spiral that I couldn't control. Postpartum depression had evolved into something much more serious. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask for help?" "Because I was ashamed, because I thought it was weakness, because you were so busy building your empire that I felt invisible, interpreting that as yet another failure of mine." Her words flowed out in a rush of brutal honesty. "I started taking anxiety medication, then painkillers for pains that didn't exist. Within months, I was taking dozens of pills a day." David felt the world spin. "Sarah, I never realized. I was very good at hiding it. In the morning, I took stimulants to seem functional. In the afternoon, tranquilizers to manage anxiety. At night, sedatives to get to sleep. It was a vicious cycle that consumed me." "And Emily? How did you manage to take care of her in that state?" Tears began to stream down her face, Sarah's face. "This is the hardest part to admit. There were mornings when I woke up on the living room floor, not remembering how I got there, and found Emily alone in the crib, crying from hunger, dirty, completely helpless." The horror of the revelation hit David like a devastating wave. "My God, Sarah. The last time this happened, I realized she could have hurt herself. She could have tried to climb out of the crib. She could have swallowed something dangerous. She could have died because of my negligence." Her voice completely broke. "That's when I decided to leave. I thought she would be safer without me." David remained silent, processing the magnitude of the confession. The anger he had carried for years began to transform into something more complex, a mix of understanding, mourning the lost opportunity to help, and gratitude that Emily had been spared from a greater tragedy. "Why didn't you reach out? Why did you disappear completely?" "Because for the first 2 years I was still using. I tried to get help several times, but I always relapsed. I couldn't go home while I was a danger to Emily." She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "When I finally managed to stay clean for a few months, 3 years had already passed. How could I show up after so long and expect forgiveness? The letters that Emily received. I started writing them when I got here. Dr. Carmen suggested it as part of the therapy, a way to maintain the emotional connection without causing confusion for Emily. I never thought she would find them." Dr. Carmen, who had been silently observing the conversation, intervened. "David, it's important to understand that Sarah has made extraordinary progress. She has been clean for 18 months, participated in all therapeutic programs, and developed solid coping strategies. And now? What happens now?" Sarah looked directly at him. I'm not asking to come home as if nothing happened. I know I've lost that right. But I would like the chance to know my daughter again, to be present in her life, even if gradually. Emily wants you to come home. She has spent 5 years dreaming of it, and I have spent 5 years dreaming of the same, but I can't be selfish. I can't put my desires above her well-being. Sarah paused, gathering courage for the next part. There's something else you need to know. David felt his stomach tighten. What? During the first 2 years of my recovery, I had some relationships with others who were in the same situation, people who understood the pain of addiction. She took a deep breath. One of them resulted in pregnancy. The world stopped. David felt as if all the words had been sucked from the environment. You have another child, a daughter, Sophia. She is 2 years old now. Sarah spoke quickly, as if she wanted to get the confession out in one go. She is being raised by her father's family, who managed to stay clean and has the structure to care for her properly. The revelation was like an emotional earthquake. David stood up from the chair, walking to the window, trying to process the information. Emily had a half-sister she didn't know about. Sarah had built a completely new life during her years of absence. David, Sarah said softly, I know it's a lot to process. I'm not telling you this to hurt you more, but because Emily needs to know she has a sister, and because any attempt at rebuilding needs to be based on complete truth. He turned to face her. Where is she? Sophia. With her father, in Richmond. She has visited here at the clinic a few times. She's a beautiful child, very much like Emily was at that age. The silence that followed was heavy with tension. David struggled against an avalanche of emotions. Anger, jealousy, confusion, and strangely also relief for finally knowing the whole truth. How are we going to explain this to Emily? With great care, gradually, and with professional support, Dr. Carmen replied. This family has gone through a complex trauma that will require time and patience to heal. And you, Sarah, what do you really want? I want to be Emily's mother again, in the way she deserves and allows. I want to earn back the trust I lost, and I want her to know her sister when we are all ready for that. She paused. But I understand if you think this is impossible. I understand if you decide it's better for her to grow up without me. David looked out the window, where he could see Emily playing in the garden with Anna, laughing as she chased butterflies among the flowers. His daughter was finally happy, finally complete for having found her mother. How could he break this moment of joy with more painful revelations? But at the same time, he knew that the truth was the only solid foundation upon which a family could be rebuilt. The lies and omissions had already caused too much suffering. Let's talk to Emily, he decided, but we will do it together with Dr. Carmen's support, and it will be a gradual process. Thank you, Sarah whispered, tears returning to her eyes. Thank you for giving me this chance. When Emily and Anna joined them half an hour later, the girl immediately ran into her mother's arms, radiant with happiness. Watching the interaction between them, David realized that the journey of family reconstruction would be long and complex, but for the first time in years, there was real hope that they could find a way to be happy together. The truth had been revealed, but now the hardest work began, transforming that truth into forgiveness, understanding, and eventually renewed love. 3 months had passed since the reunion in Virginia, and the Thompson family's life had transformed in ways none of them could have predicted. The mansion in the upscale neighborhoods, once silent and cold despite all its opulence, now echoed with lively conversations, genuine laughter, and a new energy that seemed to awaken even the inanimate objects. It was a sunny October morning when David He woke up earlier than usual, not to review financial reports or prepare presentations for investors, but to help Anna organize a surprise party for Emily. The girl would turn 9 the next day, and it would be the first celebration with her mother present in 5 years. "Dr. David," said Anna, extending a carefully crafted list, "I need you to stop by the bakery to pick up the cake. Emily chose a butterfly shape, remember?" David smiled, grabbing the car keys. In recent months, he had learned to appreciate these simple, everyday tasks that he had previously delegated to staff. Picking up a cake, choosing decorations, actively participating in organizing a children's party. These small paternal responsibilities had become precious moments of connection with his daughter. Sarah was in the kitchen, preparing the traditional snacks she had learned to make during her recovery at Hope House. She wore a floral apron that Anna had bought especially for her, and there was a serene contentment in her movements as she shaped the cheese pastries. Her transition to life in Los Angeles had been carefully planned. Twice a week, she still attended therapy sessions at the local clinic, maintaining her commitment to ongoing recovery. "Good morning," greeted David, kissing her lightly on the forehead, a gesture that had become natural after weeks of family therapy, where everyone learned to gradually and healthily rebuild intimacy. "Good morning. I've managed to make 60 snacks so far. Do you think that will be enough for the school friends she invited?" "More than enough. Emily will be thrilled." David paused, observing his wife's focused face. "How are you feeling about tomorrow, with the whole celebration?" Sarah stopped working for a moment, wiping her hands on the apron. "Nervous but happy. It's strange. For years, I imagined what the birthdays I missed would be like. Now that I can participate in one, it feels almost surreal." Their relationship had evolved into something completely new, not exactly the marriage they had before, but a partnership focused on Emily's well-being and the family's collective healing. They had decided to live in the same house, but Sarah occupied the former guest room, maintaining her personal space while gradually reintegrating into the family dynamic. Emily came, down for breakfast, wearing her school uniform, but with a special ribbon in her hair, a golden bow that Anna had taught her to make the day before. In recent months, the girl had blossomed in an extraordinary way. The nights of desperate prayers had given way to bedtime conversations where she shared her dreams, fears, and hopes with her mother. "Mummy, the snacks smell so good," she exclaimed, trying to sneak a taste from the platter. "Oh no, young lady, you can only taste them tomorrow at the party," laughed Sarah, gently swatting her daughter's curious hand away. The dynamic between mother and daughter had developed naturally, despite the years of separation. Emily seemed to have an innate capacity for forgiveness, accepting her mother back into her life with an ease that often surprised the adults. Of course, there were difficult moments, occasional nightmares where she dreamed her mother disappeared again, or episodes of anxiety when Sarah left for her medical appointments, but the progress was consistent and encouraging. "Dad, you didn't forget what we talked about, did you?" asked Emily, winking conspiratorially. David smiled. "Of course not, Princess. Everything is organized." The everything he referred to was a very special gift that Emily had requested, a meeting with her half-sister, Lily. After 2 months of intensive family therapy, Dr. Helena Johnson, the psychologist who was working with them in Los Angeles, had deemed that Emily was emotionally ready to meet her sister. The meeting had been carefully coordinated with Mark, Lily's father, a 35-year-old man who had met Sarah during her early recovery years and had been surprisingly cooperative when they learned of the complex family situation. He worked as an occupational therapist in Richmond and had raised Lily with the help of his own mother, a widowed lady who had welcomed her, granddaughter with unconditional love. "Emily," said Sarah, sitting next to her daughter at the breakfast table, "are you sure you're ready to meet Lily tomorrow? It doesn't have to be on your birthday if you'd prefer to wait." "I'm sure, Mommy. I dreamed about her last night. She was playing with me in the backyard and calling me her big sister." Emily paused thoughtfully. "Do you think she will like me?" "Absolutely," replied Sarah, hugging her daughter. "You are going to be a wonderful big sister." Anna watched the conversation from the kitchen sink, where she was washing the breakfast. Dishes, an emotional smile on her face. In recent months, her role had evolved from caregiver to a beloved aunt-like figure who helped maintain domestic harmony. There were moments when she felt slightly out of place in the family gathering, but Sarah had made a point to include her in all important decisions, recognizing that Anna had been instrumental in keeping Emily emotionally stable during the years of maternal absence. "Anna," said Sarah, "are you sure you don't want to travel to Virginia over the weekend? I know your cousin is getting married in Richmond." "I don't want to miss Emily's party for anything in the world," Anna replied firmly. "Besides, it will be the first time Lily comes here. Emily will need all the support possible." The day passed quickly with the final preparations. David had hired a decoration company specializing in children's parties, which transformed the backyard of the mansion into a true wonderland, with colorful balloons, a butterfly-themed table, and a special area where the children could play safely. In the afternoon, Sarah received a call from Mark confirming they would arrive on time. Lily, at 2 years old, Sarah was excited about the trip and had insisted on bringing a gift she made herself for the big sister. "How is she?" asked Sarah, her voice heavy with maternal emotion. "Growing up so fast. She loves to draw and is always asking about you. Just yesterday she asked when she would visit Mommy, who lives far away." The complexity of the family situation was still a daily challenge. Lily knew Sarah as Mommy, but had Mark as her main father figure and her paternal grandmother as her primary caregiver. Emily, in turn, was learning to accept that she had a mother who also loved another child. Family. Therapy sessions had been crucial in navigating these turbulent emotional waters. On the morning of her birthday, Emily woke up at 6 o'clock, radiating excitement. She ran to the parents' bedroom. She still referred to David and Sarah's room as the parents, even knowing they didn't sleep together, and jumped on the bed, waking everyone with her contagious energy. "It's my birthday, and Lily is coming today," she sang, dancing around the room. Sarah got up and hugged her, feeling immense gratitude for being part of that moment of pure joy. "Happy birthday, my princess. 9 years of life, 9 years of joy in my heart." Guests began to arrive at 2 in the afternoon. Emily's school friends, some mothers who had become friends of Sarah at school meetings, and relatives from David's side who were gradually getting used to the return of the sister-in-law. At 3 o'clock, the electronic gate announced the arrival everyone had been waiting for. Mark was driving a silver Civic, with Lily in the back seat in a colorful car seat, excitedly gesturing at everything she saw out the window. Emily ran to the front door, hand in hand with Sarah, her heart beating so loudly it could be heard by nearby observers. When Mark opened the back door of the car, a little girl with curly brown hair, surprisingly resembling Emily at the same age, got out with the typical confidence of a 2-year-old. She wore a yellow dress with flower patterns and carried a small bag that clearly contained the promised gift. "Emmy!" shouted Lily, running with open arms toward her sister. Apparently, Mark had shown Lily pictures of Emily throughout the trip, and the child had memorized her older sister's name and face. The meeting was magical in its simplicity. Emily bent down, receiving Lily in her arms, and the two hugged as if they were old friends reuniting. There was no awkwardness, no shyness, just the instinctive recognition of a blood bond that transcended the complexities of family circumstances. "Hi, Lily, I'm your big sister. Come, I'll show you my backyard." Sarah watched the scene with tears in her eyes, being comforted by Anna, who was also visibly emotional. Mark approached, greeting David with a respectful handshake. "Thank you for allowing this meeting," he said sincerely. "Lily talked about Emily the whole trip." "Thank you for making this possible," David replied. "I know it's not easy to navigate this situation." The party unfolded magically. Lily naturally integrated into the group, playing with the other children and following Emily everywhere like a devoted little shadow. When it was time to sing Happy Birthday, Emily insisted that Lily stand by her side to blow out the candles. "Make a wish, Emmy!" shouted her school friends. Emily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and when she blew out the 9 candles, everyone felt something deep and special had happened. "What did you wish for?" Anna asked later when the girls were playing in the backyard. "I wished for our family to always be happy like this, with everyone together, even if it's different from other families," Emily replied with the wisdom of someone far beyond her 9 years. As the sun began to set and the guests left, the extended family gathered on the terrace for a more intimate moment. Lily had dozed off in Sarah's lap while Emily showed her gifts to Mark and told stories about school. "Sarah," Mark said quietly, "can I talk to you privately?" They stepped aside to a corner of the backyard, leaving the children with David and Anna. "I want you to know that I'm very happy with the progress you've made," he said sincerely. "Lily benefits a lot from our regular meetings, and seeing her interact with Emily today, it was beautiful. Mark, I don't know how to thank you for allowing me to be part of her life. You are her mother, Sarah. Regardless of everything that happened, that bond will never disappear. And more importantly, you have become a better, stronger person. Lily needs this version of you in her life when it was time." For goodbyes, Lily categorically refused to let go of Emily's hand. "I don't want to go. I want to stay with my sister." Emily bent down to talk to her younger sister. "Lily, you'll be back very soon, okay? And I will visit you in Richmond too. Sisters always find each other, always stay together in the heart." The promise seemed to comfort Lily, who finally accepted going to the car, but not before handing over the gift she had brought, a crayon drawing where 2 curly-haired figures were holding hands under a colorful rainbow. "It's me and you," she explained proudly. That night, after Emily fell asleep hugging her sister's drawing, Sarah and David sat in the backyard for a conversation that had been postponed for weeks. "David," she began, "I know our situation is unique. We are no longer husband and wife, but we are parents together. We are a blended family in a way that no one taught us how to do. And does that bother you?" "No. In fact, I think it's exactly what we needed. We are not trying to go back. As we were before, we are creating something new, something stronger, because it is based on truth and real forgiveness." David nodded silently. In recent months, he had discovered that love can take different forms, not just the romantic passion of the early marriage, but also the compassionate love of 2 people who choose to care for each other and their daughters. "What do you envision for the future?" he asked. "I imagine Emily growing up happy, secure in the knowledge that she is loved. I imagine Lily visiting regularly, developing a true relationship with her sister. I imagine you continuing to be the wonderful father you have become." She paused. "And I imagine that perhaps one day we can find a way to be romantically happy as well, when we are ready. And Anna, does she have a place in that future?" "Of course. She saved our family when I couldn't. She is an essential part of this story." As if sensing they were talking about her, Anna appeared at the patio door, carrying a tray with hot tea. "I thought you might want some tea before bed," she said, smiling. "Anna," Sarah said, "come sit with us. We want to talk about something important." Anna joined them, intrigued. "We want you to know that you will always have a place in this family. David continued, "not as an employee, but as like a beloved aunt, as someone we choose to have with us. And," Sarah added, "we want to help you achieve your own dreams as well. If you want to study, if you want to travel, if you want to build your own family, we will be here to support you." Anna felt tears streaming down her face. "You gave me a family when I had none. You gave me purpose when I was lost. This will always be my home, no matter what the future brings." As they sipped tea under the stars of Los Angeles, the three adults felt a deep peace. They had built something rare and precious, an imperfect but genuine family based on conscious choice, true forgiveness, and unconditional love. Emily slept peacefully in her room, surrounded by birthday gifts and her sister's drawing, dreaming of a future where all the people she loved would always be present. And for the first time in 5 years, her dreams matched exactly the reality that surrounded her. The journey had been long and painful, but it had finally brought them all to the place they had always meant to be, home, together, building memories of love that would last forever.